This is Art Talk with April, an artist podcast where we meet artists from all around the southeastern states. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to Art Talk with April. Today we have Kait Steward, who's a Lowe Mill artist. She's a creative painter, maker, all the things, and we love it. It's amazing. Thank you for coming on the podcast today, Kait. And how did you get started making art? Is this something that you went to school doing, or where's your beginnings?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, first off.
Sure.
I was always a creative kid, big into the chalk drawings on the sidewalk. I did a lot of painting in the driveway as a kid. My mom had a great little tub of acrylic paint she'd let me drag out. But I've done the school thing. I have a undergraduate degree, a Bachelors of Fine Arts in painting and drawing, and then I also have a Master's of Fine Arts from Southern Illinois University in 2D art as well. So I've got a little bit of schooling underneath my belt, but I feel like kind of learning and being around other artists is what has taught me the most.
Yeah. So did you go straight into being an artist, or did you, do some other things? Like most of us do other things before we get to being, like fully invested.
Yeah. So when I was leaving high school, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do if this was going to work. And I had no clue at all what I wanted to do. I knew I felt good about art. I felt like I was pretty okay at it. And I flipped a coin. I was either going to go into art or I was going to go into optometry. And the coin said art. Wow. So I decided I'd try that route. When I started school, I was wild and I decided to be a triple major. So I majored in graphic design, art education, and fine art studio art. And I figured that would give me the best chance to sample everything and see what actually would be an option. Very quickly ruled out graphic design. Not for me, not meant to be on a computer all the time. But I found a lot of love for teaching, and I found a lot of love for studio making and crafting. But I realized pretty quickly that teaching little kids was not it for me, and that I enjoyed working with adults and talking about how to make things, how to craft things, what art means in a much more, grown-up way. I guess that's the easiest way to put that. So I pretty quickly kind of shifted gears and focused on a fine arts practice with the goal of teaching in the undergraduate kind of sphere of things.
Wow.
And that's where I've ended up. So I knew I needed to get my master's. I went off that direction to get my master's, and now I teach art appreciation. And it's been fabulous. I love it.
That's awesome. So then how did you decide you do have a studio in Lowe Mill, right? So how do you manage that, like with your teaching and having a studio? Like, what does that look like?
A little chaotic at all times. So I don't know. When I decided that I wanted to go the teaching route, I kind of figured that would be my main motivator, that I would want to teach these classes and it would push me through school. But as I kind of got into grad school, I realized how important the making of things was to me and how important it was to create and make large works, small works, you name it. Drawing was always kind of my first love, and then painting followed after. And they feel very like integral to like how I find my calm and how I found my peace, or how I process. So through all that, I've kind of kept a really dedicated studio practice. Whenever I was in grad school, it was very easy to kind of just focus on the work, teach at the same time. And then kind of coming out of that, I had a couple of different little jobs here and there. I worked in a nonprofit that was really fabulous as well. But the studio art was the one constant. It was just kind of always there in my back pocket and always ready to be picked back up. So now I have a studio at Lowe Mill, and I use that space mostly as kind of a gallery space, but also a working space as well. So I've got like a corner set up with a great little easel and a drawing table. And then I've got 3 walls kind of covered in massive and tiny paintings, full range. And then depending on the time of year, I use that space to either work on paintings or I use that space to work on grading. It just depends on what I'm up to. We just finished finals week this past week. So there was a lot of time where I was just in there furiously typing. But it works well as kind of a space to get out of my home and kind of be around other creative people, feel invigorated, feel inspired, but also a good, gentle, kind pressure to get something done, which is really helpful.
Yeah, imagine so. So like, I mean, I don't know much, even though I've interviewed a lot of artists from Lowe Mill, I don't exactly know like if you have to like have certain hours or if you have to be like, selling a certain thing or amount or have a space that's, I don't know, visitor friendly or what? So,
Yeah,
like,
I
how
can give
did
you
you go
a rundown.
about setting all of that up?
So the rules there are that you have to be there 15 hours a week, and you make your own
Oh,
schedule and you post your schedule on the door. So as long as you're within those Wednesday to Saturday hours, 11 to 7, you've got
oh,
to be there
okay.
for 15 hours. So for me, it changes. I change my hours every semester. It depends on when I'm teaching.
Yeah.
Like this past semester, I was there Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Here in the summertime, I'll be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it just kind of changes
Oh,
depending on what my schedule looks like teaching wise and course load wise. But in terms of what the studio can look like, it's really up to you. They're very open to how you want it to be. So if you want it to
oh,
be purely a workspace, my first year I wasn't really interested in selling. I was just trying to get some work done. I had some shows coming up that I needed to focus towards. So it was kind of purely workspace, and then now it's kind of transitioning into something else. Some people teach lessons, some people sell directly like a gallery. Everybody
yeah.
kind of does their own thing, and they're very open to following your journey and whatever you're wanting to do,
Oh,
which is really special. I feel like you don't see that anywhere.
yeah, that's really nice. So you're trying to use it kind of a work slash gallery space. So
Yeah.
people can kind of walk in and purchase things while you're
Mhm.
there and then you just kind of try to refill the spot. Like I imagine like as an artist, I'm like, oh, I sold something, I need to fill it back up or what, how's that work?
Yes, sometimes it really kind of depends on the feel. If it's a big gap, so I have some really large paintings, like the one behind me,
Yeah.
are like 5 feet tall. If I lose that gap, I suddenly have a lot of space to fill. The likelihood of that is lower. Usually, I sell something relatively small, and it's easy to kind of pop something back up there to fill it. But I like rearranging stuff. I kind of get into a funk, and I'll feel like things are feeling stagnant, so I'll just take everything off the walls and rearrange it again. And that's
Interesting.
really a great way to kind of feel like the space is getting claimed again. It's mine. It's got a new
Yeah.
energy, new feel to it. And it's fun to see how different pieces will interact with each other, how they kind of
Oh,
inform each other and
yeah.
change the conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. I could imagine that being really interesting. Just resituating the space. Gosh, for people who come by, it could look like all new art and it's the same
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I did more.
It's definitely not the same thing in a different formation. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So, like you said, you've already mentioned that you do small stuff and larger stuff. Are you working in series or like do you plan for like a show or how is your main sort of, I guess, processing through like having a bunch of work? Is it single one-offs? Is there a plan? Like how do you do it?
I feel like it kind of comes and goes in phases. So a
Mm.
lot of it kind of depends on what is directly coming up. So if I know that I have a show, I don't currently have one on the horizon, but if I were to know that I have a show in a year, then I try to find my umbrella theme. What am I working under? What is this kind of thesis statement for what this is supposed to be about to
Yeah.
me? And then I try and kind of work towards that idea. Currently, I'm in this really fun gray area where I don't necessarily have something specific coming up, so I can kind of play a little bit and see what's fun.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to start a new series right now. I'm wanting to do a bunch of dinner plates with different food on them. I've got a bunch of little
Oh, that's cool.
circle panels I'm excited to paint. But it really just kind of depends on what is sitting on the horizon. And if there isn't anything, that gives me the free space to kind of play with it as I wish. I have a very specific way of making my stuff looks really specific. It's very bright.
Yeah. 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 Bright, colorful
Yeah.
stuff.
So it's easy to tell when it's mine typically. It's usually intense, but the subject matter itself kind of shifts and changes depending on mood, honestly, which is
Yeah.
not a very clear answer because mood is very fickle, but it is what it is.
I hear you. And I think, I noticed that you have landscapes, you have like figures, people and everyday moment kind of things. And then you're talking about having a series of like plates with food on it. I'm thinking, okay, that's different. You're going
Yeah.
into a different area there.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
what's your thinking around that? And you're like, I guess your theme, it seems like that's going to go in a different direction.
Yeah, definitely. So when I first started this body of work that is kind of currently in my space, currently on my website, when everything started, that was around COVID 2020 lockdown. And I was in this really tiny, very white and beige apartment, and everything was so small, and our world looked so, so small. And so I found myself kind of constantly scrolling back through my phone and trying to find these moments where things felt big, whether that's like with a bunch of people that I love and sitting in a crowd or at a concert or looking back at kind of large landscapes that made me feel small, but the space feel large. This kind of recollection and thinking back, was super important. So I started this kind of larger series of work about the idea of memory and what it's like to look back on things and how true memory may or may not be. I know there's that great saying of like, when there's the truth, there's my truth, there's your truth, and then there's the truth of what happened. And
Yeah.
so even looking at images felt very similar to that. There's the truth of the
Mm.
moment as I see it, the truth of the moment as you see it, and then the truth of what was actually there. So I kind of got really into this idea of memory and how does it change over time? How does our mood change over time? And as that has kind of grown and evolved, it's turned into this like exploration of how do we let things go? How do we connect with things and be in a moment? And meals tend to be something that I feel like I really connect with people over. Maybe we go to dinner and we sit down and have a beautiful conversation. Maybe it's a moment of rest in a really chaotic time. But there's a painting titled You Don't Mourn a Meal. And I think about that phrase a lot. You are thankful for it. You're grateful for it. It nourishes you and you move on. But you don't hold on to it. You just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in this idea of what we hold on to and what we let go. So the plates just kind of become this vehicle for talking about moments that have passed. Like sometimes this is a fun little glimpse of something, or sometimes this is something that will go away. And either way, you just have to acknowledge it and let it be. So I don't know where it will go or if it will go anywhere. It's just fun to play with in the meantime.
Yeah. Are you planning on it being very colorful like your other stuff?
Yeah, I definitely have just leaned into that. That's so fun. That is purely for enjoyment for me at this point. At one point, it was very conceptual. It got very grad school heavy, add a lot of thinking to it. And then now at this point, I just really enjoy it. So I'm going to keep with it.
Yeah, I love that. That's
Thank
really
you.
cool. And you kind of do sort of like the one behind you is sort of like a limited palette kind of thing.
Yeah,
And then some
definitely.
of them are all the colors, you know. You're like, well, okay.
Yeah,
I see
full
where that's
Crayola
going.
box.
Yeah. Are you using like a specific kind of paint that you prefer or anything like that that you lean towards? Like how do you
Yeah, so
plan that?
I have a very specific process. Everything starts with just phone photos. So I have a very basic iPhone, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's very obnoxious to the people that I love dearly because I'm like, oh wait, hold on, let me get that picture real fast. Let me snap this moment. I need a picture of your plate right now. But I kind of snap all these pictures. I'll throw them into something like Photoshop or Lightroom, one of the Adobe Suite processors, and then
Yeah.
I'll kind of play and tweak with the color. And then when it comes to the physical media, I really enjoy golden liquid fluorescent acrylics. They come in these little tiny tubes, but they're fabulous. They're not cheap, but they do their job. And you can kind of put drops in them. So all of these paintings that you see, if you throw a black light on them, they go crazy. They glow and they fluoresce and they
Oh,
respond to that.
wow.
So I really, really love golden if you're listening. Yeah, they're great. They're fluorescent acrylic. High flow are my favorite.
Oh, wow. And that's
Mhm.
interesting. High flow. So you're like, I mean, what's the reason behind that? It's like spreads more or like
So you can put them in almost like a dropper. So you can
oh,
add little tiny amounts or a massive amount to whatever paint you're using, and that will kind of create the fluorescence. And the kind of way that they can move across the surface, it's almost similar to like a watercolor, or if you wanted to use a glaze effect on top of an acrylic paint,
yeah.
you can get this really fun sheen that will go across the surface and give you some really intense, vibrant color. And it holds its own against other opacities. So it doesn't fade into the background like something maybe a little bit cheaper might.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Like, how did you figure that out? Like that whole
Trial and error.
it's
Yeah,
like, oh,
did a lot of weird stuff and things that
yeah.
just didn't quite turn out right. And then I had a really great professor in grad school. Her name's Haley Farthing, and she just kind of constantly reminded me that your studio practice is something you're investing in. So as much as it might hurt your wallet in the moment to pay for something, this is something that you are putting in for the long term. And she was right to kind of the quality of my supplies and find that it's worth putting in a little bit of change in order to see a better outcome in the end. And she was right.
That is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard anybody suggest that. And that might sound weird, but it's like most people are kind of always trying to get that cheapest whatever, you
Yeah,
know?
bang for your buck. I'm the same way, but it is worth the
Yeah.
investment sometimes, as much as it
Yeah.
might hurt.
Yeah. I imagine golden's pretty good. And I don't know, I haven't used the fluorescence, but that makes sense. Like that would probably
Yeah.
be really nice. So with your work and everything, and you kind of touched on it, but you kind of have a vision there. So it's kind of, I guess, like human connection is kind of the theme. Like how, I mean, I guess, did you come through that through COVID, is what you're saying? Or
Yeah.
how else did you kind of come across that? Where did that land?
Origin story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if I were to tie in three major words to all of my works, it's connection, grief, and nostalgia. I feel like all of those things
Mm.
kind of tie into this weird little intricate sentimental bundle. A lot of that was COVID related, being forced to be isolated. I was going through grad school during COVID. So this is this time where you're supposed to reflect and really take the time to think through everything. And we had nothing else to do but to think through everything.
Yeah.
And then during that same time period, I lost a friend. And in
Oh,
his death, that really kind of reshaped the way all of us were moving through life. He was very young, and that kind of changed the way that these pictures meant to me now. They had a different meaning to them. I held them a little bit differently. They felt
yeah.
more finite, like this is a moment that you might not get back. This is maybe something that will be gone. This is something to kind of cherish a little bit more closely. And that kind of reinvigorated this idea of like nostalgia and how do we hold on to things that are really important to us, whether that's people or places or just moments that felt really poignant in the moment. So all of those things kind of combined into this tornado of color, which is what you see now. And they feel very vibrant and fun. But whenever I look at them, I have a lot of very like strong emotional connection and
Mm.
reaction to them. And a lot of them are like layered and dense, and they have multiple images stacked on top of each other. And those kind of become my way of working through larger moments or instances that can't be seen through just one image. Sometimes a conversation takes place over the course of a year. You have to have little bits of every piece reckoned with in one image in order for it to feel finished. Or I don't know. I'm sure if I were to say, think of a time in your childhood that dealt with a tree, you could come up with an image in your head that deals with a tree. But you might also come up with three more images. They all can relate to each other. So then how do you reckon with that? How can they all kind of connect and combine and be their own new weird thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to nail down, this idea of memory and how do we think about things and how do we grieve and also hold things close. But it's definitely something that's just kind of on the top of my mind all the time. I'm super sentimental, super nostalgic. I'm very goopy as a person, like big puddle of feelings all the time. So this has
That's
been the
so
best way.
funny. That's
Thanks.
awesome. I think a lot of artists are like that might be a connecting element that we all need to like get our feelings out there or something.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that is so interesting to me because I feel like one of the things that a lot of artists struggle with is that whole like, okay, what am I trying to say? Do I need to say something? Or do I
Yeah.
need to just make something that's enjoyable? So, like, what's your advice there? Like, I mean, I guess you lean on the meaning behind it.
Yeah, I think thinking about it doesn't need to mean something to you. It needs to mean something to me because at the end of the
Mm.
day, whether or not I make money off of this is a toss in the air. Maybe somebody sees it and they get it. Maybe somebody sees it and they don't. So there's no point in me trying to pursue, I don't know, you have to understand it. You have to get it. There's no need for that.
Yeah.
So if I can just relinquish that and understand that once it goes on the wall, you're going to have your own associations and connections. I'm going to have my associations and my connections. If you want to hear them, I'll tell them to you, but it's out of my hands. And that really kind of takes that burden away. And I also had a great professor in my undergrad. Her name's Danielle Mujina, one of my favorite artists. And she made it very clear. She said, your art does not have to change the world. You don't need to make massive statements that are going to make everybody rethink their life. It doesn't have to be this huge, earth shattering, groundbreaking. Maybe it's just about something that you love. Like whatever keeps you up at night is kind of what she would say. What
Yeah.
you? And that's really stuck with me. It doesn't have to be earth shattering, groundbreaking, world changing. It could just be about you and your world, and that's enough. There's plenty of connection to be found there.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Because that takes a load off, doesn't it? Like that
Yeah.
makes you feel like, okay, I don't have to fix the world's problems.
Yes.
My artwork doesn't have to mean everything, you know?
No, 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 no. Gosh, it takes so much
That's
pressure off.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's a big deal, especially right now with like the world kind of falling apart in the way
Yeah.
that it is. It's like I need to say something, you know. You kind of feel that way. I don't know if you feel
Mhm.
that way, but I feel that
Yes.
way, and I'm like, but that's a lot. Like I don't know how to fully say what I want to say
Yeah.
in one artwork, you know, it would take many, many, many artworks to get across all the
Mhm.
things, right? But
Absolutely.
then being able to let go of that and say, you know what, I don't have to fix it. with this. It's okay, you know.
Yeah.
I wonder
And you're
if,
just one person.
yeah, I wonder if
Yeah.
like, especially like political artists, it seems like that would be like a really difficult thing to try to, try to do. But
Absolutely.
what are some of the like challenges that you've come across as far as your career in art and expressing yourself and letting go of some of those things?
Let's see. I feel like being an artist is so unique. It's such a very specific set of challenges that you kind of have to deal with. A big one is the whole motivation of it all. I know that I've got a job it's not quite full time, it's nearly full time. And to throw that on top of a studio practice that requires at least 15 hours of my time each week, that makes it pretty difficult. So managing the overwhelm and the motivation is definitely a challenge for me. And just accepting that sometimes you're going to go to the studio and you're not going to want to be there and it's going to be fine. You're going to do something. And you know what? Maybe it's not the most beautiful thing that you've ever created, but at least you did something. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like making and creating, I feel like it kind of comes and goes in waves. Like sometimes you'll have a busy year where you're doing 3 shows in a year and there's so much happening and shipping pieces left and right across the country. And then the next year, things are quiet and it feels like suddenly things have dropped off. But that's just really not the case. It's just coming and going in waves. So learning to just let it flow. And when opportunity comes your way, that's great. Whenever opportunity doesn't come your way, it's not a statement about you. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
And flowing with rejection as well. I know that I feel like that's something we don't talk a lot about it as artists, but to get opportunities, you have to be willing to be rejected as well. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
yeah, that can be a lot. That's a hit on your ego, and that's no human wants that. It's very human not to want to be rejected. But just accepting the fact that you're taking a chance and you're taking a risk and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. That's really helpful as well, but always a challenge. It definitely comes and goes in waves with me. Sometimes I'm really great at it and I can let it roll off my back, not a problem. And other
Yeah.
times it's like, dang, I really wanted that thing. But
Yeah.
just letting it go, let it flow.
Yeah, I know that feeling. So
Yeah.
are you, I guess, primarily wanting to get into like gallery shows and that kind of thing and exhibits, or do you also do markets or anything like that?
So I don't do any markets. I would not be opposed, but I don't have the setup for anything like
Yeah.
and I get pretty overwhelmed during the school year. So I don't that kind of window of time is already marked off for me. But as for like how I like to show my work's always up at Lowe Mill. I'm in Studio 325. So if you're ever over
Okay.
there, come say hi.
Yeah.
But I have work up currently in Owensboro, Kentucky, in a coffee shop. I've got a piece that's in the Pennsylvania Journal of Arts and Sciences this summer. I
Oh,
just
okay.
randomly, it worked out. And then last year I had 2 shows, which were fabulous. One at Remnant Framing at Lowe Mill and one at the Creative Arts Gallery in Dalton, Georgia. So again, it's like those opportunities kind of coming and going. I apply for a lot of shows. That's kind of what I'm interested in right now, just pushing my work out to new locations. But when I set my goals for myself, I was originally going for teaching first and foremost. And then all
Yeah.
those kind of studio goals kind of hit underneath teaching. And most of those goals were have a solo exhibition and have a studio space. And I knocked them off a lot faster than I thought I would.
Yeah.
Which is great. I'm very grateful, thankful, grateful, blessed, whatever you want to call it. But that has opened up kind of a world of opportunity for me. These are things I didn't have adults in my life who were artists and kind of pushing themselves in the same way. So it's just not something I really ever saw. I didn't know it was an option.
Yeah.
So now that I'm kind of here and learning all these new cool art things from the Low Millions and learning about their opportunities and what they're up to and their connections and how they like to move through the world, it's kind of changing things for me. So, yeah. So gallery shows are kind of my big push right now, personally. I'd love to get into more gallery shows and I'd like to do another solo in the future. That'd be great. But I just keep applying. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So how do you find these shows? Are you coming across them online or that
Yeah.
kind of thing?
So there's a great website, Call for Entry. It's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
great, cafe.org. And it has a list of running art shows that you can apply to at all times.
Really? I've never heard of that. That's
Yeah,
so
that's
cool.
great. Yes, I was very lucky to have some kind of like hip internet savvy young professors in my undergrad who got us very like,
That's
you need to
awesome.
do these things.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a great way, call for entry.
Yeah.
There's also 2 or 3 more websites that I can't think of the handles off the top of my head. I also have just lists of art shows that people are calling for. And you can create an account. You can set alerts like, oh, okay, if there's a show in Alabama, I want an alert. And it'll send you, okay, there's an art show. It's about creating art about nature. What do you have? That type of thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Instagram is also great. As much as the algorithm can be tough for all of us involved.
Yeah.
Once you kind of train it to do what you want, it can be very helpful. So now that I've been looking at a bunch of art shows, my algorithm is suggesting.
Yes.
So I feel like every 4 posts I have a call for art. Now you have to do your
Awesome.
research a little bit more with those. Look at the institution, make sure you feel good about them, because the internet's a weird place. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But that's worked out really well for me in the past. I've gotten a couple calls off of just Instagram posts, and I've been lucky to have invitations as well. I think something that the art world is really good at is connecting and community and really trying to pull people in. And I've had some great opportunities just from knowing someone who was putting something together in another city and they needed a piece to fill out a show, that type of thing. So
that's awesome.
Friendships and connections are really, I don't know, lucky in this business.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I feel the same way. I feel like a lot of artists, I don't know, we don't all get the cool hip professors with the information, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, man, nobody told me that. But it's kind of like a lot of artists can be sort of like they get into their making and then they don't like communicate and network as much.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like you do that very well, but a lot of artists struggle with that. Like just even applying to one show, which might not want you, you know, is like this big, huge, gigantic thing versus just putting it out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the other thing with that is a lot of times these calls cost money. You might have to pay $30 to get rejected. That's tough. Yeah. No one wants to pay $30 for a no in the mail. That's really, really hard. And I know I'm a very introverted person. I'm sure I don't come off that way, but in my dreamland, I'm like sequestered in a little studio in the dark, painting my little life away. 90% of the time I pop out, I go teach a class, and then I go back to my little hidey hole with my paint.
Yeah.
I'm having a great time. But I've also figured out really quickly that doesn't work.
Yeah,
it turns out you do have to have friends, and they are good for you, and you will love them, and it's amazing. So kind of pushing myself to get out of my little introversion bubble and be a little more outgoing. Lowe Mill is great for that.
Yeah.
But just putting yourself out there, even if it's just physically putting yourself there in the room, is really helpful. It's hard. It's very, very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard, but it's worth it.
Well, you've given lots of great advice. Like what's some wonderful, you really have, like,
thanks.
You might not realize it, but you have, like, you've given me good advice. I don't know about anybody else.
I've had great teachers. Let me make that super clear. It's not from me.
It's awesome. But like, you know, somebody who's trying to do the things that you're doing, what's some advice? Like, you know, getting out there and making it happen, or juggling multiple things.
Oh, okay. I have a piece of advice for myself, and then I have a piece of advice that I've heard from someone else. So the piece of advice for myself would be to just take it easy on yourself. If you're creative and you're kind of like bashing yourself over the head, I didn't make enough today, I didn't paint enough today, I haven't painted in 3 weeks, that's not going to get you anywhere. The shaming will only hurt you. That's not helping. And it's hard to make something that feels profound or close to you or something that you care about whenever you're so mean. So just be a little gentle. Be gentle with yourself. It's okay if you take a break. I had a full year in the middle of all this that I did not make a single thing. And that's just what it needed to be. I was moving out of undergrad, trying to figure out what the next move was, and I didn't make anything for a year. But it came back. So it's in your back pocket. Whatever you're working on, it's your toolkit. You can use it. It's not going anywhere. So just be a little easier on yourself. It'll come back when it's time. And creativity is a muscle. If you feel like you've lost it, you just got to pick it up and start strengthening it again. It's not going anywhere. And then a piece of advice from someone else that I think about all the time. I had a professor named Zhuhong Shang in grad school, and he talked about making art as climbing a mountain. So when you start climbing the mountain, you can see the goal in the distance, whatever it might be. Maybe you're working towards a show. Maybe you're working towards just making something new, something different, something exciting. And every day that you go to the studio, you climb the mountain. just a little bit. You're just getting little pieces and getting things done, whether that's you spend 10 minutes on a drawing or you spend 2 hours on a painting, who knows? And then at some point you realize how far you've come, and you keep looking and realize there's more mountains in the distance. So every day you just climb your one mountain, you get to that goal, and you realize that there's more mountains to go. So don't panic. Take the mountain one step at a time. There will be more mountains in the future. Don't worry about those mountains yet. Take the mountain you have now. And that was really, really helpful for someone who gets very easily overwhelmed and gets kind of stuck in obsessive holes.
Yes.
That really, really helped to kind of, you eat an elephant one chunk at a time. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
take it slow. Take it one step.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I think too, like especially like when you graduate and you're like trying to make something happen, that's when that overwhelm comes on, and you're like, well, I've got to do all the things, and it's so much bigger, and you just have to like break it down into smaller pieces and sort of just keep moving, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. And with the art of it all, a lot of times you're waiting for someone else to let you in the door. Like I know that I've got the work, I have somewhere for it to go, but I don't have the connections to get it there. Or I've got this great idea and I don't have the tools to get it where I want it to be. So you have to have either a connection in place, or you're going to have to go make those connections. And that's really stressful and scary, especially when you're first coming out of an environment that was at one point very art focused. Like my undergrad was great. I had so many cool artists around me, so many amazing professors, and it's very easy to be inspired in those spaces. But then whenever the bottom drops out and you're back in real life, and if you're like me, you're working at Walmart for a year and trying to make it work. That's tough. Trying to figure out how real life is going to move and how this fits into your everyday world. So just taking it slow and finding your connections where you can. It'll work in time, but it's hard.
It is. I think even it is so cool that you say all that, because you're just saying all the things, like just keep going, and like just don't, take it one small step at a time, and you have no idea, like there are artists out there who are serious professionals. Like they're in galleries all over the world, and they still say the things that you're saying. Like they're still saying, it's hard. It's a lot. I have to make myself just go into the studio, even if I do a tiny, tiny bit, or if I don't do anything at all,
Yeah.
And it's like, you always think that, okay, those artists have all the answers because they're already there, but there are just more mountains. You know what I mean? Like it just keeps coming. And there's no like moment where it's like all figured out. You just keep growing and learning and going, and be okay with it, I guess. Like don't sweat it, just like chill.
It turns out we don't know what we're doing. We're all just trying. I know. You'd think they'd have it figured out by now too, but I think that's really part of this whole process too, of the whole making of things. I don't know how with your practice and what you make. I know that like with me, I'll be making something, things will be going great, and then I'll hit a point where I'm like, oh, this feels stale. I got to start over. I've got to reinvent this. We have to reinvent the wheel. How does this get interesting again? What do I do? So the kind of like creative process is just never ending, and that's what's so interesting about it. It's very, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word. It keeps your mind going. It's very pleasing to the brain to constantly have to problem solve and figure out what's the next move and how does this go, and I don't know, it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's something to like, it's like figuring something out, figuring out a problem, trying to solve a problem. And I've experienced the same thing where I'm like in the middle of working something. I'm like, I just don't want to work on that. And I do the thing where I have a bunch of things going at once. And so then I'll switch to one that I said, like, I feel like working on that one instead of the one that I was working on. Because now this one feels weird and I don't know if I want to finish it or if I want to start over, So I'm going to work on that one. And that's kind of how I keep that from like, I don't know, for where I guess I'm still doing something, and at the same time, I'm still thinking about the stale artwork over here that I gave up on. And I started doing that thing. And it's like you're always kind of, I don't know, it keeps your brain like turning in some way, but in a good way.
It helps. Yeah, I do the same thing. Like in my studio right now, in my brain, I'm thinking of my studio. There's a half piece finished right next to me. There's two half finished pieces in front of me. There's one that I've barely started on the easel, and they're all just kind of scattered around. When I was younger, I wouldn't let myself do that. I'd be like, okay, we have to do the thing and finish the thing. I've got to get her done. And then I don't know when that changed. I guess probably grad school. That's just not an option. You've got too much going on to care. You're going to have to leave it in the dust and hope you can pick it back up later. And it works good. I feel like that really helps. I know a lot of us artist types are kind of, some of us can be quite scattered and kind of aloof. And that's a great way to figure that out. Let yourself be scattered. Make 4 different things. Who cares? It'll get done at some point.
I work digitally a lot. And so I'm like, I don't know how many pieces I'm in the middle of working right now. I could probably, I mean, if I go back, it'd be like 5-10 years back, I could still have one sitting back there in my files, and then I'll come across it and think, oh, I never finished that. I should do something with that.
Yes. And I'm sure some of them will remain for the rest of forever.
I've literally done that. I just recently picked up another artwork that I had put aside completely because I was like, I don't know what this is. And then I picked it back up and I'm like, oh, I got new ideas. I don't know.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, this is interesting again. I have no idea why, but it is.
Yeah, needed some new eyes, fresh.
Yeah. Yep. I had to like experience life a little more and then like get inspired,
Yeah, very artsy of you.
Yeah, I made that sound very romantic, that whole experience, like being an artist.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. Well, so people can find you at Lowe Mill and purchase your work. Do you have a website, shop, or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. I have a website. I don't have it set up for sales at this point in time, but if you're interested in anything, my email's on there and I have a submission form. And my website is my name, kaitsteward.com. Yeah. So it's very easy to find me. I also have an Instagram. I'm much more active on there than on my website. My website needs a revamp, but I've been avoiding it.
Oh, don't we all?
That is a summer goal for me. Fingers crossed, we'll get there. But my Instagram's much more kept up. I do my best to respond to things, but I try to avoid all social media. So I don't know how I manage that.
You're doing both. That's interesting.
Yeah. And if you look up my name and art, my name will pop up, my little profile pop up. I've got like bright red hair in my picture, so you can't miss it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been really fun, and I'm so excited about everything that you're doing. And I'm actually going to be at Lowe Mill a weekend or two from now because I'm in the ALWCA show, and they're about to have a closing thing. So maybe we'll get to meet. I don't know.
Amazing. That'll probably be May 30th. I don't know if maybe they'll do it with open studio. Okay. Yeah, I'll be there. Absolutely. Cool. It'd be wonderful to meet you.
Yeah, I'd love to see your like little gallery space studio. That's cool.
Yeah, I'd be happy to have you. Yes, I love Lowe Mill. Come by anytime. We all have different hours, but if you need to know anything from any of us, you can always reach out on our medias, and we're usually pretty good at responding. But I'm in 325. I'm up on the 3rd floor. It's pretty quiet up there.
Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. New episodes are out Tuesday at 6 p.m.